So yeah, as I was saying, today's topic is actually how to change your paradigm. So to start with, we're going to go through like what actually is your paradigm, and then we're going to go into depth on actually exactly how to change your paradigm. So your paradigm is actually a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. So your paradigm is basically the way you think, and this actually controls all of your behavior because all of your behavior is pretty much habitual, which means all of your behavior comes from your habits, and your habits actually come from the thoughts that you're producing. So the way you actually think and the way your mind is actually programmed is your paradigm. So our paradigm can actually be influenced by our senses. So what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, what you smell, what are you seeing and hearing every single day? And what are you actually accepting and rejecting into your reality? Because a lot of people aren't aware that they can actually accept and reject their reality. So when you accept something into your reality, you accept it into your life, you accept it and want to, you essentially put out a signal saying that you want more of that into your life. And then when you reject something, so this is something that you don't want in your life, you actually have the ability to say, hang on, I don't want this in my life. And you can actually reject it. So what are you accepting and rejecting into your reality? Are you accepting all things good? Are you accepting abundance? Are you accepting all of the good things? Or are you actually accepting the negative things instead of rejecting the negative things? You can actually reject what you don't want in your life. So if something's happening around you and you don't want it to be happening in your life, you can actually say to yourself, I'm going to reject this. I'm not actually living through this right now. And your subconscious will actually believe you when you do that. So what are you actually giving your attention to? Because what you give your attention to is what you actually invite into your experience. So what are you hearing? And therefore, what are you inviting into your experience? And what are you speaking that's going to also invite into your experience as well? Because we have to remember, we're not a product of our environment. Our environment is actually a product of us. Our environment is a product of what we hear, what we see, what we choose to accept into our reality, and also what we choose to reject from our reality. That actually makes up our environment, and that's what we actually live in. So when you hear people say, we are a product of our environment, that's because they keep accepting everything that's in their they keep accepting everything that's in their life right now, instead of rejecting the things that they don't actually want and actually focusing their attention on the things that they do want in their life. They want to focus on accepting abundance, accepting affirmations, accepting all things good into their life, which will then create a better environment around you, because your environment is actually a product of you. Your environment is a product of what you speak into existence. Your environment is a product of what you choose to accept into your reality, okay? So you are actually, as I said, you're in control of your environment because you can actually control what you are accepting. So you need to understand that you are not a product of your environment is a product of you. Now, I've repeated that quite a lot just to get the point across, okay? So how do you actually create the environment that you want? So to be able to do this is where you kind of start changing your paradigm, right? So what do you actually do to create the environment that you want? So what are some things you can do? First of all, you want to answer these questions, okay? Where do you see yourself in the future? Where do you want to be? Do you even know where you want to be? Do you have a goal that you're working towards, or are you just going through life without a goal, right? So even though you're living your rubbish reality right now, you might not be living the life that you want to live right now. You have to live your new reality in your mind. So, for example, I'll use Nana as an example, right? When he was going up his lift to his old house in Washington Heights, his old apartment where his mum brought him up, he said himself that, there's people on the corners literally selling drugs, right? And that's not an environment that you want to be in. And that's not an environment that he actually wanted to be in. So when he actually went up the lift to his apartment, he actually visualized himself going up to his 50th floor penthouse. And where is he right now? He is actually living on the 50th floor in a penthouse in Miami. And he's been visualizing that, living in his new reality, rejecting his old reality that he was actually living, and accepting only this new reality that he wanted to live. And that's what he's been doing for like the last 2 years. And now look where he is. He's actually living his normal reality, his real reality, in a penthouse 50 floors up, which he's been visualizing for the last 2 years, right? So your environment is actually a reflection of the thoughts that you've been having for the last 6 months, for the last 12 months, okay? So that's sort of something else to think about regarding your environment, right? Now, there's actually 2 ways that you can change your paradigm. There is repetition and emotional impact. So when you're repeating this new environment, right? When you're repeating, the visualization, going up the lift every time you go up, when you're repeating saying your affirmations to yourself, when you're repeating saying where you want to be in the next year or so, when you're repeating writing down your goals every day, you are repeating these habits, and they actually in time create a change in your paradigm. Because remember, the thoughts you have will impact the emotions you feel, which will impact the actions that you actually decide to take, which will then ultimately dictate the results that you're going to get. Okay? So your paradigm essentially is what we call like physical. So the paradigm is basically what shows up in the physical. But how you actually change your paradigm is the spiritual side. So to change your paradigm, the way you think, the first thing you have to do is get new ideas to think from. All right, I'm just going to get the whiteboard up and just annotate this and draw this up for you. Let me know if you can see it. Put a 1 in the chat if you can see the whiteboard here. Can you see the whiteboard? Okay, so let's type this in. So this is your paradigm here, right? Let's see if I can draw. There we go. So this is your paradigm, okay? And then we have your thoughts, emotions, actions, and results. So we have this here too. Now, your paradigm is influenced by your senses, as I mentioned. So we also have that as well. Let me just type that down here. What are you seeing every day? What are you hearing every day? All those kind of things like that. Now, we move into the first point of how to actually change the way you think. Okay, so let's draw an arrow if I can find it. Let's just do this. Okay, so the first point is getting new ideas to think from. So when you do this, you are essentially asking yourself, one sec, let me draw this out. Okay, so the first point we have creating new ideas to think from, okay? So to be able to get new ideas to think from in the first place, right? We have to, first of all, be willing to learn. And we have to be passionate about learning new things. Because if you can't change your way of thinking, because if you're not passionate about learning, you actually can't change your way of thinking. Because it doesn't mean enough to you to be able to actually implement a change in your life. Now, I posted a post earlier about teachability index, and teachability index is basically your willingness to learn multiplied by your willingness to accept change. Now, you have to be willing to learn new things and you have to implement them to create change. Because you can do all of this, you can be willing to learn and you can be willing to accept change, but you can still not create change until you are willing to accept the change. That you can be ready to receive the change, but because you're blocking yourself by your unwillingness to accept the change for what it is, then you are blocking your blessing. Okay? So, where do you get new ideas to think from? That's the question. How many books have you read? How many audios have you listened to? These are where you're going to get the new ideas to think from. So some books that I could recommend are As a Man Thinketh, Ask and It Is Given, and The Power of Awareness. However, The Power of Awareness is slightly more advanced, but it's still like a crazy book. But if you're not ready for it, it's going to go straight over your head. But yeah, if you're not passionate about learning, then there's no point in trying, because you can't change your paradigm unless you're already willing to learn and willing to accept the changes that you need to take on in order to get the life that you want to live. So there are actually some other ways that you can get new ideas to think from outside of personal development. So what you have to do, let me just draw here. So what you basically have to do, there's two components to having new ideas to think from, right? The first one is, what do you actually want? So what do you actually want out of what you're doing right now? What do you actually want from life? What are your goals? Okay, so that is the first point of getting new ideas to think from. Now the second question you want to ask yourself is, who do you want to emulate? Who do you want to follow? Who do you want to be like? Who do you want to grow the business with? Okay, so that is, who do you want to emulate? Okay, so those are the two questions that you need to ask yourself. One sec. There we go. So what do you actually want and who do you want to emulate? Okay. Now, what the second question means is, who are you going to follow? Who are you going to let mentor you? Who are you going to, follow who's already got the results that you want? So who do you actually want to swap places with and actually be in their position? And what you want to do is basically learn from them how they actually got to where they are today. And that's how you're going to get there too. So find someone who has what they want and do exactly what they do. And by law, you will eventually get what they have. Okay. So that also comes under your teachability index as well. Like we mentioned, you have to be willing to learn and you have to be willing to accept change, because if you can't be doing, if you can't be willing enough to learn something new and accept change into your life, then you're basically going to stay stuck in your old paradigm, and that's what we don't want. So after you've got new ideas to think from, now you have to work on your self-image, okay? So let me just type this one out. If you're taking notes, you can screenshot or you can just, take your own notes on this. So self-image. I'll just draw a box around this one. Right, so when it comes to self-image, what actually is self-image? Self-image is the reality that you're going to live in the future, and it's the person that you're going to become. So how do you actually see yourself, and how do others actually see you? That's what is composed. That's what makes up your self-image. So how you see yourself and how other people see you. So you have to work on your self-image on a daily basis, every single day. Repetition is one of the ways to change your paradigm, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a minute. But self-image is something that you have to really hone down on and master, because without self-image, you cannot get to the next step of changing your paradigm. So how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself broke? Do you see yourself struggling? Do you see yourself not being able to pay the bills? Do you see yourself working a job that you hate? Do you see yourself as living unhappily? Do you see yourself living in doubt? Do you see the way that you're going is you don't have any belief? If that is how you see yourself, then then that's what you're going to bring into your reality, okay? Because the way you see yourself is so important, because the way you see yourself is how you're going to be in the future, okay? So even if you're not a millionaire right now, if you see yourself as a millionaire and you start acting, you start talking, you start picking up the habits, you start doing the daily routines that a millionaire would do, then by law you are going to become a millionaire. But you can't do that if you're doubting yourself. You can't do that if you don't have the belief that it's going to actually happen for you. So how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself living the way that you are right now, or do you see yourself being a six-figure earner? Do you see yourself being a millionaire? Do you see yourself being a leader? Do you see yourself influencing the lives of millions of people? Do you see yourself being a person of increase where you add value to everyone that you actually meet? Do you see yourself having the chairman qualities? Do you see yourself confidently, fearlessly, having humility, having passion, having resilience, having transparency, having the ability to decide good decisions, having proficiency, having compassion, having discipline, okay? Do you see yourself having these qualities? Because if not, you need to start working on developing them right now so that you can actually incorporate this into your self-image. And also, do you see yourself having an undying belief? It's not even do you see yourself, but do you have an undying belief? Do you believe 1000% that you know that your goal is going to happen for you, or are you questioning if it's actually going to happen at all? So these are some things that you got to consider, because how you see yourself is the reality that you will live in the future. If you keep seeing yourself as broke, if you keep seeing yourself as not believing it's going to work out for you, then that's what's going to happen to you. If you see yourself as a six-figure earner, if you see yourself as a leader, if you see yourself as being a person of increase, that's the person that you're going to develop into, because that's how you see yourself. So how do you actually work on your self-image? One of the best ways that you can work on your self-image is visualizing the person you're going to become. How would the higher version of you, how would they operate? How would they think? How would they act? How would they dress? How would they smell? How would they believe? What's their level of belief looking like? What's their commitments looking like? What's their habits looking like? What's their traits looking like? What skills do they have that you don't necessarily have yet? And do they respond with logic, or do they react with emotion when things start triggering them? Do they have a daily method of operation, and what are their strengths? So these are the kinds of things that you should be visualizing on a daily basis, how you're going to be in the future, because the more focus that you put on this, where you put your attention, that's where the energy goes to. So if you put your energy into visualizing the person that you're going to be in the next year, in the next month, even in the next 5 years, if you want to go that far, when you put energy into thinking about being that person, you're going to become more consciously aware of the decisions you're making, which is going to bring you closer to being that person eventually. So you're not manifesting who you are today, you're manifesting who you're going to be tomorrow, who you're going to be next week, who you're going to be next month, next year, next decade. You're manifesting who you're going to be in the future, and that's the higher version of you. So when you visualize with the intention of living in the feeling of being your higher self, living in the feeling of already being your millionaire self, live in the feeling of being your six-figure earner self. So what I mean by this is, when you visualize, imagine that you're already that person, and notice the feeling you get, because the feeling is the secret, okay? When you visualize with the intention of living in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, which means when you visualize, you actually feel as if you're already there right now. That's what actually puts you in a higher vibration. It brings you closer to where you actually want to be, and it attracts it into your life more. Because the work we have to put in, we already know the work we have to put in. We already know the physical activities we have to do, and the physical activities are the easy work, but the belief, but the self-image side, the spiritual side, the you versus you side of what we're doing in entrepreneurship, in personal development, that's the stuff that is the hard part. That's the stuff that's hard. If you think the physical stuff is hard, then you're either top-notch on your spiritual, because actually, I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, the easiest thing that you will do is reach your goal, but the hardest thing you'll do is believe you can do it. So I'm going to say that again. The easiest thing you'll do is, for example, make 6 figures, become a millionaire. But the hardest thing that you will actually face along the way is believing that you can actually do it yourself. So after self-image, we actually have belief. So after you developed your self-image every day, now you have to work on your belief as well. Let me just type that. Oh, I figured out how to move that. Legend. Alright, cool. So now you've worked on your self-image, now you have to work on your belief, okay? So how can you actually increase your belief on a daily basis? Some of the things you can do. Affirmations, what are you speaking into existence on a daily basis? What are you speaking into your reality? Because as long as you believe you can do something, you can actually accomplish it. So what are you seeing? What are you hearing? And what are you speaking? Because your words carry so much weight in the way that they program your belief, the way that they program your thoughts as well. So when you're speaking out affirmations every single day, when you're saying, I am dependable, I am knowledgeable, I am persistent, I am confident, I am organized, I am ready and deserving for my goals, I'm growing every day. When you're saying these things, it actually increases your belief because you're saying it in the present as well. So for every day that you work on your self-image, you also increase your belief as well. So even if you wanted to do this in a lazy way, if you just increase your self-image every day, your belief is automatically going to increase as well. So if you don't take 15 to 10 minutes minimum per day to work on your self-image, to do a visualization, then that's when the lack of belief will start to come in. So when you're low on belief, you have to work on your self-image, basically. And then you will turn your belief into, more belief. You will increase your belief because for your self-image for your belief to increase, your self-image has to increase as well. So where you're at right now is not where you're going to be in the future because of a few things, right? Because if you learn new ideas to think from, like we said at the start, it'll be actually impossible to stay in the same place because you'll be constantly learning new ideas to think. And as long as you learn new ways to think, your thoughts will always be evolving, which therefore your emotions and actions will evolve with your newly found thoughts, which will then constantly be changing the results you're going to get. So just remember that it's a process, right? You have to trust the process because it does work. It's been proven to work. We've had multiple people come in knowing nothing and then gone and smashed it. So trust the process, but also we need to remember the process is spiritual as well. So this is the deep work side of, success, if you want to call it that. We have the physical side, which is actually doing the work. And then we have the spiritual side, which is, the internal battle with you and your belief level, with you and your development level, with your growth, with your self-image, okay? So what you give attention to, as I said earlier, is the reality that you will live. And when you focus all of your attention on your current situation and focusing on what you don't want to bring into your life, you will actually attract more of that because that's what you're focusing. So when you're staying in the same place and making no progress, it's because you're focusing on those same things. You're focusing on the reality that you're living in right now instead of where you actually want to be in the future. And like I mentioned in the past few weeks, I'm going to mention it again. When you're focused on the lack of your goals, you're not actually focused on your goals. So let me say that again. When you're there's two ways you can go about this, right? You can either focus on your goal and focus on your goal being 100% definite and it's already done. You just have to let time catch up. You just have to put in the work to catch up with it. You can live that way and that will ultimately get you to your goal quicker because you know it's already going to happen. All you have to do now is put in the work. Or you can focus on you not already having achieved your goal, which is actually not even focusing on your goal at all. It's focusing on the lack of your goal. And when you're focusing on the lack of your goal, you're actually focusing on what you don't want because you're focusing on what has not been done yet, even though your goal has already been done in the spiritual. But when you're focusing on what's not been done, that's what you're going to attract more into your lives. into your life. Because when you're focusing on something that hasn't been done yet, which means that is the lack of, which means you have doubts, you have insecurities, you have fears that you can't achieve it, that you don't believe it's going to happen for you, that's what's going to keep you in that same place, because you're putting out the energy of you don't think it's going to happen for you, you don't actually believe it's going to happen for you, which will then bring that into your experience more. So that's like the belief side of it. Now we're going to go into the most important part, right? Let's just draw some arrows. Okay, so this is actually how to change your paradigm. Now, one sec. So most people, when they want to change their paradigm, they actually make it to this level here. And once you get to this level, this is actually the most important level, and it's actually where a lot of people go wrong. Okay, so once you get to this level of repetition, so when you get to this level of repetition, right, this is the most important part. This is where most people completely mess up. And this is the key to the whole thing. So with repetition, repetition is one of the ways that you can change your paradigm. And it comes after the self-image and belief, because the self-image and the belief and the new ideas that you need to get to think from count as the repetition that you have to do every single day, cannot be missed, Monday to Sunday. Because the day you start the day you stop working on your self-image, the universe stops creating for you. You know, the universe, or God, whatever you believe in, it works simply, right? What you give out is what you're going to receive back. So the day you stop working and the day you stop giving attention to your self-image, to your belief, is the day the universe stops working for you. It stops allowing you to receive what you want. So think of it this way, like a ball stopping rolling. So all of the momentum that the ball has built up is now lost when the ball stops rolling. And you have to remember that it takes a lot longer to get the ball to start rolling in the first place than to keep it rolling. So once you're in momentum, the hard work is getting you into momentum in the first place. But once you're in the momentum, it keeps building, it keeps building. And all you have to do is just stay consistent with it. All you have to do is show up every day and work on new ideas to think from, work on self-image, work on your beliefs, and repeat it every single day. And all you have to do is keep that snowball rolling, keep that paradigm shift getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? You just have to stay consistent until you manifest it. Now, when you get to the stage of repetition and all of this stuff, right? Once you have worked through these stages every single day, now you actually get to the stage where you are in a new paradigm. So now you've actually changed the way you think. You've reprogrammed your mind. You've changed the way you think. And this is something that most people go through their lives not even being able to do once. And now you have changed your thought process. You've changed the way you think now. So through repetition, as I said, you develop a new paradigm. And your new paradigm is what's going to create your new reality. So your new way of thinking is going to create new emotions within you. It's going to create new actions within you. It's going to create the results that you've been looking for a long time. So your new paradigm is going to reflect the new reality that you're going to bring into your experience. The new reality that you're going to live, okay? So if your life is not changing the way you want it to right now, go through this process. Go through finding the new ideas to think from, decide what you want, decide who you want to emulate, who you want to build with, who you want to work with in your team, what leaders you want to be like, what character traits you want to have. Then work on your self-image. How do you actually see yourself every day? Do you see yourself as living in the situation that you are right now, or do you see yourself deserving more? Do you see yourself being something more than the place you're at right now? You know, there's a difference between a visionary and an observer. An observer will see where they are right now, but a visionary will see it for the process. A visionary will see the long-term goal. You know, the visionary will see that this is a process. They will see that they need to get new ideas to think from. They need to increase their self-image. They need to increase their belief. They need to repeat this information every single day through their minds in order to get this new paradigm. Okay? But the observer will just see the life they live right now, and they will have no belief that they can actually change their life around. But it's been done so many times. We have so much proof that this stuff works, you know? So all we have to do is just apply it to our own lives now. So once you change that image, you actually get new ideas to think from. And when you visualize yourself every day, that's you working on your self-image. Because the more you connect with the higher version of yourself, the more you'll become enlightened with ways of how to actually achieve the goal that you set for yourself. One thing that I learned from Neno the other day, right? And this is like a golden nugget right here. When people say that the how doesn't matter, it's true. Let me just check the chat. So when people say the how doesn't matter, it's because when you go through this journey, when you go through developing a higher self-image, developing a higher belief level, developing a better repetition every single day, you actually enlighten yourself with how you're actually going to get to that level. Because when you're creating this connection with your higher self, when you're creating the version of who you want to be in the future, you ultimately start thinking like them, and they are going to pass to you ideas. This sounds like it's time warp and stuff, but they're gonna that you will be enlightened. This is actually mind blowing. You will actually figure out the ways how to do it yourself. That's why they say the how doesn't matter, because you'll figure it out along the way through the connection to the source, through the connection to your higher self. It will just come to you like that, and that's when the breakthroughs are gonna happen, right? But only when you're connected to the source, when you're connected to this information, when you're actually really tapped in, that's when this can happen, okay? But in order to receive the blessings, you have to show up every day. The people who show up every day, the people who work on their paradigm every day, the people who do this repeatedly every single day are the people who are now deserving of the paradigm shift, the people who are deserving of the breakthroughs, okay? So if you want to screenshot this one more time before I close it, I'll just make sure I included everything. All right, cool. So I'm going to stop the share now. That is the call for today. Thank you for joining, everyone, and I will see you next week at the same